Hi Fred, thanks for your reply. That's really, really useful to me in what I'm trying to do. So, okay, I'll talk about a couple things. Why your art will be a subject is an interesting topic, I think. Yeah, I'll just go into that first. Okay, now in your description you go through wanting to be a search term, and I understand fully in the system. I'll describe my vision for how this technology will evolve and how that's should happen. On the other hand, if you are hosted at a site that a group of people is paying for the actual storage and everything, it's like there's nothing wrong with amateur porn, but it is a different category. Somebody wants to make a printing press to help people make political magazines doesn't necessarily need to just print a thinly veiled piece of porn. It's like somebody that wants to help the amateur porn people should provide that printing press, right? So the question's going to come up. I use you as an example because I think it's obvious that your videos won't be taken down. You won't even, there is no problem. But you have to, just as obviously as that what you're doing is legal and a part of the conversation, it's also true that somebody's going to come along and go, hey, I think that's beyond the line, and we're going to review it. So it's a good example of something that would get reviewed, and the annoyance for you would be being reviewed when you think, this is stupid, I shouldn't even be reviewed. Sort of agree with you. I wouldn't flag you. I could see that was fine, so I would... it's just that it's going to happen. Yes, it's a reason to go ahead and have your own little mini server that ideally would be searchable and hooked into the greater system. And I'll describe that in a second. But I want to go one more thing, is that I'm sorry if for you it's an annoyance. But what was happening when you started doing that stuff is I noticed a lot of, there was starting a conversation, and I love art analysis, and we don't have enough really of that. People review movies and stuff, but I would like the nitty-gritty get into. It's fun. Okay, so we were going to have an art analysis issue, and I think everybody in our participant group pretty much is going to admit that obviously you're creating a statement. Now, they might still think it's too far or too offensive, right? And that was something we could have discussed, and it would have been beneficial to us. We would have learned. Let's say a lot of people had bullshit, stupid opinions that were annoying for you to hear about your own work. They're still working them out. I think it's good that they express them, and then people go, hey, and then you go, what? You know what I mean? So to me, that's something we missed. That's a part of the conversation that we missed. So I imagine if we had a PDS server and you were taking part, that conversation would still happen. It might be an annoyance to you, like some conversations are an annoyance to certain of the participants, or not how they want to talk about their art or anything. But then again, the public dialogue doesn't guarantee that there won't be things like that. It's just that you wouldn't have your account all fucked up. You wouldn't have been interrupted in your work to deal with actually losing your platform. You could have chosen to be interrupted to take part in the conversation about you. It might be hard to ignore, but that's still the choice, right? So that's the kind of guarantee. Now, into what you're talking about you want the next level of, it really doesn't matter. There's no chance that people would come together because, right, this PBS community could turn into be like, yeah, that is beyond the line, and that would suck, but the community is going to have some power to do that. I don't think that's likely to develop that way, especially choosing an initial community correctly. But it's possible, and you don't even want to be subject to that possibility, so yeah, you can start your other. Oh, by the way, and the size of the server, to me, this low number of 30, 40 people having a conversation, to me, that's a conversational number. I don't want a community that's only that big. You have to get past that Dunbar number. Lower than the Dunbar number, you have insular groups and petty politics, and people sort of know each other too well. And there's not as much turnover, and political fractures can cause the communities to split and become too small to support themselves. So that's threshold. To me, that's like, I don't need a lot of people to have a vibrant conversation. Okay. Just for the record, though, I'd like the server to have more like 300 people, and I'd like it to grow to be 1,000, because that, to me, I think is a robust number, having 2 servers. And here's where I'll get into what you're talking about the indexing and searching and whatnot. Okay, so what'll happen is if we have 2 servers, then, the second one will be somewhere else. We'll put it somewhere else on the earth. And these two servers, this one will have, say, my videos, and this one might have your videos, but they'll both index each other's videos, so we can reply to each other and stuff. And most people won't notice the difference, because you go to your database, it's got the video reply, and it'll all be instant. As soon as I make a reply, everybody can get the information. So if you happen to come to your server, you'll be able to see, and the only difference is when you get a video URL, it will point over here. You probably won't even notice that as a user. Alright, so they're integrated, but they're distributed. They have a language to talk to each other and to give each other information about the the files they have, so that they can put them in their own indexes. Now, if the indexes got really big, this guy doesn't even have to have a complete index. He can just have a pointer to this URL, and when he wants this guy's index, he does a search, access to it rather, he does a search, and this guy responds back. And both of these can, this is a distributed database. Both of these can act like they have the whole database as it scales, as you have hundreds of these servers, and they know how to talk to each other. The way a regular business does it is their servers know how to talk to each other. Okay, we will do it where we publish all of this, and this is one part of why we're going to use open source software, even if it's just as long as it's barely good enough. That'll be our baseline, so we always know that we're dealing with a sort of a rising standard in open source of how this works. But I will add stuff as necessary if we were successful enough to get a second server or to link to your server to allow this public language of the distribution of this database. And it won't have to be people just in the public domain server, which is co-op. It's open. We encourage, even from the start, as soon as I create these messages, I will give you the scripts you need to install to talk to this database and translate it, and we will have ClipBucket, so it should be easy. But even if you use something besides ClipBucket or start your own thing, doesn't matter. We can publish through web publishing means, which there's many, and the information to use so that you can access information in our database, and also give information to our database so you can host a file, but make sure that it's immediately updated in, you know, at least one of this one host in this network, and it'll propagate at whatever speed you want, and it could pretty much be instantaneous. Right? Now this gives you a kind of searchability. Now the difference between this and a kind of a stochastic random where you're taking a Google search and you're trying to reconstruct things, I think that's cool too, and you can do that. The problem is, if you want to think about the kind of algorithms that accomplish that and get every reply and make a coherent conversation, they'll take a while to run and to figure out the interrelations. And in the end, they probably could get a better picture than the one people hand provide by saying, I'm replying to him. Probably. That's my belief. Kind of a theoretical code philosophy thing. But it's definitely going to be slow. So the problem there is that if I reply to you through that searchy method, through Google type search, you're not going to see my reply for a long time. So if you're checking for my reply, you're not going to get it instantaneously. Through this distributed tier 1 host provider and index provider, you would get it pretty much immediately, depending on your choice of propagation speed and whatnot. And there's ways to ensure you get it immediately, okay, more or less immediately, you know, within moments. So that's also a good platform on which to create a search, so when people are searching for conversations and stuff, but you also have a database that specifically records links between videos, semantic links between videos and blogs, between all of these things, and that is the structured conversation. Alright, so we're going to have a database that distributes but has these kinds of elements in it. And So yeah, I hope you won't mind if I do use you, because I think, sadly, you're an example. The direction you went is an example of stuff that will raise, someone will go, hey, look at this. But it's also an example of, yeah, it's just what he's doing. But, you know, I also find this interesting because I was on the other side. I mean, the screwing dead animals thing is kind of a bit too far for me, but not too far where I don't think you should be able to say it. But it's far enough that I'm like, I could see that we might want a content warning. If I'm helping pay for the server bandwidth, I might want a content warning. Well, I don't want one. I personally don't need one. But if I imagine, you know, well, what if my kids at 14, they're really into all of these intellectual subjects like I was, and I don't even necessarily mind that they see someone's artwork like that, you know, if it's done from a meaningful place for the artist. But is it too much to have a splash page that says, you know, warning nudity, warning violence? I want to leave that up to the community. I myself could just do Wild West, but I do acknowledge there's issues there because the dead animal thing just goes to a place for me. On the other hand, the stuff with the bunny and the tubes that I included in my song on your deal, I thought that worked. Okay, that was very interesting. I got that. It was quirky and funny and not funny, and it was a lot of things. So, you know, and I approve of your whole thing. The artists I respect do things that I don't like. They do things that I even can disrespect. They do things I object to. I mean, I want individuality to exist, and that means it goes somewhere into a sphere that, oh, that doesn't suit me. You know what I mean? It's all would be allowed, but I don't think the only way to avoid it being an issue is what you said, where you have your own mini server. And my vision totally will suit that. Within a year or two, we will be able to do this. And I'm open to it right away. So to the degree you do the work, and, well, okay, so for example, right away, I can make some scripts so that our ClipBucket sites will talk to each other and update each other with the videos. I wouldn't be surprised if ClipBucket doesn't already. As a matter of fact, ClipBucket does do that. I'm sorry, I had read this. ClipBucket knows how to distribute itself. So we'll set that up right away. So just as soon as we're doing it. Now, the thing is, you're not storing files yet. But it's a very interesting thing, because in my cost analysis of this, I mean, it's just a lot of work for every individual, but if every individual just bought their $10 GoDaddy, served their own videos and nobody else's videos, there would be plenty of bandwidth. And everybody's video would be as robustly served as the host they chose. So that would be great. I mean, the only reason I'm not going that way is right. Like, I'm going to tell other people. People would rather, even if it was going to be $10 a month, they'd rather just send it to a public domain server and have them get all the resources than set this other stuff up. And there's things about I just hate videos that don't pseudo stream, where you can't seek ahead in the video and has to load the whole video. People don't know how to do that. So, but we're going to be totally friendly. Anybody that wants to set that up, and if you set that up, by the way, you'd probably have enough bandwidth to host a couple people's videos or your own videos at super high res and whatnot. You know, so that would work out fine, and we will be working within that model. And like I said, ClipBucket, because you have to, if you have a really big video server, it has to be distributed. So this technology is pretty much out there, and you just have to set it up, and then I'll often add little patches. You know, it's like, it kind of does what you want, but then you don't have, like, I have to look into it more, but I want to see if the ClipBucket upload stuff is sufficient. I'm going to have one, but is it really quite right? You know, there's always little patches you have to do, or glue, or for example, I want to include blogging in this. I think somebody should be able to make a blog, and the blog is a reply to a video, and I should be able to make a video that's a reply to a blog, and for that matter, podcasts and stuff. And so I'll probably patch our blog software so it's easy to embed a code that automatically makes it a reply, or put a button so that you can reply. And I'll probably do something in the video description where if you put a little marker in the video description, it can reply to the blog, or you press a button and it does. Right. Okay.